Hello, everybody, and welcome to Exploring Spirituality, a podcast. I'm Ellie.
I'm Luke. I'm Ryan.
And today we are just going to give you a little background on our different spiritualities and how it kind of plays into our life. So Luke's going to start us off.
All right, well, I was raised kind of halfway Catholic, I would say. I wasn't baptized at birth, but my mother baptized me later. My dad didn't want me baptized at birth, and we kind of had fights in the household over how the religion was going to affect us. My dad grew up Baptist, I believe. But spirituality boils down to me is a very simple statement, and being mindful of the things around us. The way that Kushner talked about Moses noticing the burning bush really got to me in our class in Introduction to Spirituality, because it really related with me of how I've been looking at the world and how I've been noticing God all around me. And another thing that I kind of have inside me is the statement that God is smarter than we let on, and that there's a lot of gray area in all of these moral dilemmas that we face on the day-to-day in the modern, in the Western world. And I think that it really is about loving each other, and it's less about judging each other, and it's more based on trying to find that mindfulness and trying to find those areas where, God is smarter than we let on. Is this wrong? Well, I don't know. That's where it goes back to me with Genesis and those old books talking about not eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, it says in Genesis, and then those old books about Moses, seeing where Christianity came from and where it's come to is kind of moving from how we've evolved as understanding God and understanding Jesus as Jesus came into the picture with the New Testament, and understanding how we should love each other and that kind of good Samaritan aspect. So I'll pass it on to you, Nurye. How do you feel about it?
I was raised up in a Baptist community growing up, and I moved towards Christianity to Pentecostal. And right now, you could say I go to a Pentecostal church, but I remain as a follower of Christ, I would call myself. Most people would say Christian, but, I choose to not use labels as much because I know what comes with those type of things. Like in Christianity churches, I done been in some churches that are very hypocritical. I done been in different types of environments that, are not welcoming towards people that's trying to look for God or trying to seek God based off of materialistic things that are going on in the world. If you're not dressed the part in certain churches, mainly Black Baptist churches, mainly Black Christian churches, if you're not dressed a certain way, looking the proper attire, people will look down on you. They wouldn't show that love of God that they talk about. It'd be a whole bunch of hypocritical things going on. And to touch on the love part that Luke was talking about, I believe in love and compassion being very internally, as in like we do it based off this is natural. This ain't just because God tells us to do it. It's because we actually love and care about people. We actually want to see people succeed. We actually want to see people do what they have to do in life to get to God. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the one teaching that we did talk about in class, it was the Sister of Charity and how they were obedient and how they were very compassionate about the poor and how they were with materialistic things. They didn't confide in materialistic things. They didn't really believe in having those things. Like they had them because we need some things, but they was not big on those things at all. So, us being followers of Christ, that was one of the things that I took away from that, as in, you don't want to get so attached into this materialistic world and forget your place in trying to be towards God, because as followers of Christ, as children of God, we're not going to be of the world. We're going to be looked down upon. We're going to be looked, as unworthy of everybody's attention because we love God. But that's...
Thank you so much. So for me, I was born and raised. I am a Mormon, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as most people know. And there is within that church, and I'm still a practicing member of that. However, I think there can be a lot of judgment sometimes when people decide that there's one way to live it, and some people maybe do something differently. So the reading that stuck out to me a lot was the Buddhist teaching of where he talked about you can have 100 Christians and 100 different forms of Christianity and 100 Buddhists and 100 different forms of Buddhism. And I think that's so beautiful because spirituality is different from religion. And you saw just 3 people just now talking about the religion that they were brought up in and how they have developed their own personal spirituality, you know? So for me, another part of the reading that I really enjoyed was he talked about how Buddhists, their motivation for caring for others is they don't like sorrow and they don't want to cause anyone else sorrow. And sometimes this issue with Christianity is that to love God is to love others, and sometimes I think Christians or really religious people can think of them as separate. You know, I love God by keeping the commandments, and Nurye, you talked about obedience is important, but God's commandment is to love others. And sometimes I think when people decide that others are not following the commandments the way they think they should, then that means they don't have to love them anymore, you know?
Yeah, and I really agree with that because I think I brought up in class one time that God didn't tell you not to murder people because he wants you to obey what he's saying. God told you not to murder people because murdering people is a pretty messed up thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that we stray away from that in a lot of religions. And I love what you said, Ellie, about there's 100 different Buddhists and there's 100 different Christians with, 100 different ways of practicing that. And I'd also go even farther to say that God knows his children in many ways, at least from a Christian standpoint, in my Christian standpoint, and that there's a lot of Christians that are great practicing Buddhists and they don't even know it. Yes. There's a lot of Buddhists that are great practicing Christians. There's a lot of Muslims that are great practicing, Christians and Jews. It all goes all these ways because we have all these similarities in these religions, and we really need to step back and see what God's bigger plan is. Yeah. Maybe somebody didn't hear what the Bible is from, European settlers that sits on an island, but I believe that people like that can definitely know God without reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm. So for me right now, and if you guys want to touch on this too, the way my spirituality is being practiced is I am trying to withhold judgment of others, and I'm trying to understand the other side. If somebody does something that hurts me, or if somebody does something that makes me angry, I'm trying to understand where could they be coming from, and trying to view people with a godly lens and look at people and say, you know what, you have a purpose here.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's a very hard thing to do, especially as followers of Christ, because it's never easy to accept somebody that does harm to you or does wrong by you. It's a hard thing to do, as in I have to love this person. Oh, you have to love this person. No, I do love this person because the person did this to me. I just want to understand why. But at the end of the day, I would never look bad. I would never talk down on you. I would never wish anything harmful. I understand, the reason why you hurt me. That's what I want for you. And it's, with followers of Christ, that's where it comes hard for us because, people talk about, you have to forgive, you have to move on from this. But it's like, you're looking at it in a human standpoint as in, well, this person just hurt me, or why do I got to care for this person? And you have to go back to your roots. You have to go back to what God is saying, to where it's like, you to love these people. You need to love these people because I put it in you.
I think that's a really beautiful thing that we're trying to talk about here, Nurye. And it's really important to practice that in your own life and to kind of simplify that as I should just love them. Mm-hmm. If they hate me, I should just love them. I mean, I go over it all the time with, me and Matt, my roommate, we sit there and talk about class. Do you love me, Matt? He'll say yes. And I'll say, do you like me? He'll say, heck no. We don't like each other, but we sure do love each other. And I can tell hundreds of stories about people that have hated me in the past that I had to come to grips with and just sit down and be like, it may be God's will, but it would also be better for this person that I'm going to love them. That's important that we can come together as a group from different backgrounds and talk about this. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go over time really quickly just to wrap it up and to just go back to that mindfulness that Luke was talking about. And really, your spirituality is just paying attention to the life that you're living and the life that you want to live and really enjoying your humanity and the presence of your life on earth. And so there is some spirituality from 3 different people of all different backgrounds, and we're not so different.